So, so I wanted to chat with you guys today about identifying opportunities in fintech. I look at this in a bit of a binary way. So one, if you are not currently involved in a fintech, how can you leverage opportunities to capitalize on the opportunities that exist there? And one, if you are operating inside of a fintech business, how can you leverage activities outside of the financial sphere to help grow that business? So just to give a little bit of context around CareGuide and kind of where I'm coming from. So I was a graduate of the Next 36, which is an entrepreneurship institute here in Canada, was an early marketing leader at Top Hat, and now run CareGuide, and was really early there. So CareGuide runs vertically focused marketplaces for people looking for and willing to provide care. And so we run that through a multitude of different domains. So you can see here we have things like Canadian Nanny, housekeeper.com, petsitter.com. And so this is a space where people looking for care and willing to provide care can meet. Kind of a tertiary activity that people take is that money exchanges hands in this instance. And so you'll see we have a payments element to our business as well, which services these markets and their financial needs. And so this is just a quick look at what Heart Payroll's traction has been since we launched. So that's the payment element of our business. So over 2 million payments processed monthly, and our revenue has enjoyed a handsome trajectory as well. And a quick look at our team. So fun fact, we employ more women than men. We have people who work for us in every age range, from their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, literally up until their 60s. And we have a wide range of religious and ethnic diversity, diverse backgrounds. So we take diversity really seriously to our company's benefit. So to the meat, capitalizing on these non-fintech initiatives to drive our fintech. So our primary market and service is matching people looking for care to people who can provide it. And so we do that with a bunch of different domains, but one of them primarily is CanadianNanny.ca. And when a family and a nanny find a match, the family becomes a household employer, often for the first time, and they have to follow all the same employment law that any employer would have to find. So Heart Payroll kind of emerged as our solution to that problem for them. And so something that's been really helpful for us is having a distribution angle that nobody else has. And I think this holds true for most software and really most companies, that if you can kind of corner a market and access a distribution angle that is unique to you, it really ends up paying off. And for us, we had matchmaking. So we had this pool of families who we knew were looking for a nanny who would become employers, and we were able to siphon them off and feed them into Heart Payroll and leverage this non-fintech experience, right, of finding a nanny and matchmaking, and leverage that pool of people into our Heart Payroll business. And we do that through our product, our marketing, we have a sales team, but having this unique distribution angle has been quite fruitful. The other thing about having kind of cornering a niche, especially for financial companies, is, you know, in the payroll space, payroll can usually be modestly cheap. So, you know, $3 to $10 an employee, but because we have this niche market, we're able to charge upwards of $40 a month for these families. And that's really only accomplished by finding something that's really niche. Another thing that we've done is leverage a non-fintech product to drive our business. So one example of this is a payroll calculator. So we know when families are looking to hire a nanny, they're trying to figure out how much is my nanny actually going to cost me at the end of the day. So they're, you know, trying to figure out the net and gross pay. And so something we spun up was a payroll calculator product. And this accomplished a couple things. One is you're priming people such that when they're ready to use you, you've already done something for them that they liked and they found you helpful, and so they're more likely to go with you. And you're also priming them to use your service. So, you know, with payroll, it's inherently quite complicated and it's quite cumbersome. And so by allowing people to try and figure out the calculations themselves, it actually ends up leading them to usually end up finding themselves into our service. So if you can find an element that's maybe just outside of what your core financial offering is, it can lend itself to actually building your sales and company. Another unique approach that we took was leveraging our competitors as customers. So there are a couple different ways that a family can find a nanny. Most of them will find a nanny on Canadian Nanny, but you could also pay an agency thousands of dollars to find you a nanny, or use a site like Craigslist. Until we launched this strategy, we were just capitalizing on the Canadian Nanny pool. What we did was when we partnered with the nanny agencies, who are still matching families and nannies, and who still need help with payroll. But because we spun Heart Payroll out as its own freestanding brand, they're now able to offer a financial product to their customers. And so if there are ways that you can, it's I guess kind of like white labeling, but it's still, the brand still holds true and strong on its own. But if there are ways that you can find complementary services to partner with people who may be considered competitors, it's ended up quite fruitful for us. And then something else we've tried is testing out different conversion paths. So somebody was mentioning the benefits of testing. And when we first launched Heart Payroll, we thought the right approach would be to build out a sales team. So we thought, the way to scale is add more people on the phones. I know, a lot of companies initially take that kind of approach, and that has worked just fine. Something that we're finding is that there are ways that we can use our product and marketing to get people through the path, mostly on their own, because there are people who are willing and able and motivated enough to get themselves through. And instead, our sales team is still small and mighty, but using the sales team to catch people who are dropping out of the funnel, or more so to catch people who need that extra push and extra motivation to be convinced to use the product. And so by testing out these different conversion strategies, which maybe seems obvious in hindsight, but I would be interested to see how many people do it on a regular basis. We found that we're able to deepen our funnel and push more people through than I think we would have otherwise. So I think there are also ways that you can identify fintech opportunities, whether or not you're in one right now. So, like I mentioned, our core service is matchmaking, and we could have easily just stopped there. But I think what we did is we looked at the tertiary activities that were taking place. Was there a financial component to what our core offering was that we could complement with a service? So, for Canadian Nanny, it lent itself really well. Families are paying nannies, and there's an intermediary that would be fruitful there. And the same applies to our domain elder care. But then we have these other domains, right? Housekeeper, sitter, petsitter.com, where money is changing hands. And so it makes sense that we would extend the Heart Payroll brand to those as well. One thing I think is important to note too is just considering, if you're thinking of an opportunity like this, is making sure you consider the value of large ticket transactions versus smaller ones. So, maybe spinning up an app just for babysitter payments isn't as lucrative as something like, and as sticky as something like a payroll service to which we can apply for Canadian Nanny. And I think, when it comes to ways to build your business, especially when maybe you're reaching brand limits or market limits, there are a couple ways you can do it. You can either expand the market or increase the value of each customer. And so by taking this approach and thinking of where we could inject a financial component, we were able to expand the value of each customer. So someone on a matchmaking platform who, would stick around for a few months and the lifetime value was maybe around $40, convert that person to a payroll customer, which is much stickier. They stay on for years at a higher price point. It ends up to be much more lucrative. And so we don't necessarily have to limit ourselves by pushing into the market bounds, and can just increase how much we get from each customer. So that's kind of, that was my big ticket transaction slide. So that's kind of the story of how we took a marketplace and leveraged the financial opportunities to expand into the fintech space, and to deepen our customer base and what people are worth. Anybody have questions? Alex.
So does the payroll service end up acting as a lead gen for the CareGuide itself? So because imagine you can see when nannies churn are about to churn. So
that's a great point. Yeah. So mostly it's the opposite. Like for the most part, our Canadian Nanny marketplace offers as a lead gen into Heart Payroll, because we know a lot about them. We know they're when they're expecting their nanny, you know, what the start date is, what they expect to pay. So usually that's a funnel into Heart Payroll, but you're absolutely right. So on the Heart Payroll side, it's very sticky. So families will tell us, you know, when their nanny's about to leave, and they end up staying, and then they go back to Canadian Nanny, right? We've already been interacting with them. It's the same team. It's quite comfortable. A lot of them have come from Canadian Nanny to start with, and even if they haven't, it just is a really, really efficient flow and comfortable for them to go back into that marketplace. There's a question back there.
Yeah, I had a question. So you mentioned kind of like small payments and whether or not like it's worth building out. So in your case, have you looked at, I guess, ways to leverage I guess like the babysitters and the kind of the other areas, I mean, like housekeeping, that kind of stuff, like through a regular payments platform, like a PayPal type thing?
Yeah, so there's a couple different angles we could take, right? So one is the payroll, which is most applicable to the nanny market and the senior care market, where the households become employers. But we have all these other markets where money's still changing hands. And so I think probably the most efficient strategy there is to do some kind of payment intermediation. And there's all kinds of, you know, challenges that you'll run into, where how do we incentivize the people to stop using cash, which is, you know, pretty attractive for some people. And we have ways that we think we could do that. And I think what makes it easier for CareGuide to approach a problem like that is we have the leverage and the rest of the marketplace to kind of float those kinds of strategies where if you were just going after, you know, one app for just the babysitter market, you know, just for these types of payments, you would have to have a lot of them for it really to be worth it. But because we have each of these domains and we can kind of pool the resources and rely on the other sides of the marketplace and the other business interactions that we have going on, it makes it a little bit more lucrative and approachable.
Hi, great talk.
Thanks.
So I had a question for you about the Canadian Nanny. This might be an assumption, but I'm thinking that possibly you guys would have a lot of remittance involved, right?
I'm sorry, have
A lot of remittance involved with the nannies.
remittances.
Yes, particularly if you know, they work in other countries, so they're potentially looking to send that income back. So is that something that you guys are already doing or partnering?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, RBC, if you're listening, this could be an opportunity for you. So that's an absolutely great point. So the payroll portion, the Heart Payroll portion, addresses all of the family's needs, and it protects the nanny too, to make sure that they're being paid, you know, above or at minimum wage, and that they have all their proper pay stubs and remittances. And so allowing them to transfer payments back home isn't something we've done. But very recently, we're actually working with CIBC. Sorry. To strike up some kind of partnership. So RBC, it's a test. We'll see how it goes. We could probably be persuaded. But we have millions of users on our platform, and we have millions of hits to our website. So it's a really deep set of nannies with a specific need. And you're absolutely right. They're wanting to send money home. And so, you know, I don't think it's part of our core offering necessarily right now, but partnerships with banks like these make it lucrative for both sides. Cool. Thanks, guys.